the first panel of the day, so we'll make some quick introductions, but just real quick, Rohan, Erik, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. And what we're going to be talking about today is add-on to solar, how energy storage is becoming the center of the solar sale. Really, over the past 5 years, we've seen that connection rate with batteries go pretty high, especially in California, 90+%. So we have Rohan here. Humphrey's the Vice President of Research of Analytics with Analytics. Amazing platform. We use them a lot. For reference, I'm on the sales side, regional sales manager, so I use your platform a lot. Gives me a lot of inside information, especially on who to target, who's using Franklin, who's not. So really, guys, appreciate you guys. So thank you for joining. And then I also have Erik Holvik, if I said that right, manager corporate development at EnergySage, another great platform, especially for customers to use to look at, see who's the best product to use out there in the market. So appreciate you both for joining. Thank you for your time. And if it's all right for you, we'll just jump right in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So 5 years ago, we were asking the question whether storage would take off. Well, that's no longer the question, again, especially here in California, when we transitioned from NEM2 to NEM3, the attachment rate soared. So the question really is not now, it's how fast, it's who's ready. So storage is moving from optional to essential, from upsell to anchor. So today we're not looking backwards, we're looking at what installers need to do next. And just really quick, Rohan, over the past 5 years, where are you most surprised that you've seen a large attachment rate of batteries in, say, a particular state?
Look, yeah, what's up? Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
So I think we have been very bullish on the storage market for some time, just because we understood the potential, really within the DG space, to offer solutions to a lot of the issues that we're actually facing. So it's not really, to your point, like looking back, it's really looking forward. And we really see that the storage market in general has extremely strong long-term fundamentals. So that is really driven by, as I mentioned, low growth and the grid constraints is really going to offer a lot of value prop to the storage market in general. On top of that, because of the rate structures that Mike alluded to, and also utility rate increases we're seeing across a broad swath of markets, again, we feel that the long-term fundamentals are really, really strong in the storage space. Now, because you have those utility rate increases, what we're also seeing is actually legislators and also utility companies themselves get involved in the conversation. We saw that pretty much front and center within the PJM territory. So New Jersey, Virginia, Maryland, just recently through late Q4, where we saw those capacity auctions in PJM territory really increase, 1,000% over 2024. So that then flowed through to retail utility rate prices, and then we saw what we heard from a lot of the governors within Jersey and also Virginia, the affordability issue come front and center. So not only do you have long-term fundamentals, you also have now legislators getting involved in the conversation. And because they're getting involved in the conversation, they're wanting to make sure that their constituents can actually afford utility within their areas. Now they are setting very aggressive long-term goals to actually ensure that there is enough storage out there to alleviate a lot of the grid constraints that we're seeing. So we can dive deeper into specific state markets, as we get into it. But really, to answer your question, mate, there's a long pathway. It's driven by a lot of constraints within the grid that is only going to push utility rate prices upwards. And you are having very, very aggressive state incentives that are there to kind of dovetail into that and support the market.
You can hold that one. Sorry. So we're going to go one more to you, Rohan, from a policy and data standpoint, especially because analytics. From a policy and market standpoint, what tells you storage isn't cyclical, but structural?
Repeat the first part of the question.
What tells you storage isn't cyclical, but structural?
Definitely. So, as I kind of mentioned, I think those folks that are turning to the DG space to actually look for an alternative with regards to maintaining grid stability, that is where the structure component storage comes in, particularly in resi storage. And what I mean from that is utilities and public utility commissions are seeing storage as a very important tool in alleviating a lot of the capex and grid constraints that we're currently seeing, to actually lean on that resource and deploy it where necessary, such that they don't need to turn on vehicles which are very expensive to have. So yes, it's become structural, not like a nice to have with regards to PV. And because of that, it's really going to, in the next year or two, you're going to have to actually lead with storage because of the value it's going to add, not only to the home, from various standpoints that we can get into, but also because the utilities are going to be pushing it, because they want that DER in their distribution area, such that they can lean on that resource and dispatch when it's needed. So,
and the grid will need that, because it's already so constrained.
And you're seeing it in PJM now. So a lot of those states, the legislators have actually come forth and build out incentive programs to actually target that issue.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. So we'll now pivot over to Erik. Kind of the same premise, but now are you seeing homeowners' behavior reflect that inevitability yet?
Yeah. So homeowners for the last 4 years, I would say, when they're registered on EnergySage, we've seen about 90% of homeowners are interested in storage, and the majority of them are interested due to resilience. What we have seen is that attachment rate has gone from 18% 5 years ago to 50% nationally, and in California specifically, we're seeing it at 85%. Right, so the way EnergySage functions is very much a leading indicator of what is then going to happen in the rest of the market in some capacity. The interest in storage has always been there. What's happening now is the price has gone down. So on EnergySage, we're seeing it roughly about $1,100 per kilowatt hour overall price now, where it used to be $1,500, $1,700 3 or 4 years ago. So now prices are going down, incentives are actually showing up. Installers are figuring out how to actually use these incentives to for the sale. And once all of this is coming together, you can see that attachment rate continue to increase. And the consumers have always been there. It just hasn't been the right time for them. And now it's making sense for them.
That makes sense, especially a big driver in Illinois, not my territory, but great VPP market, and the numbers of storage is soaring there. And that's a good example. Yeah, Rohan, please.
So we put together a lot of forecasts, and just to give the viewers an idea, current state 2025, we feel it's going to be about 4 gigawatt hours of storage deployed. By 2030, that's going to double, right? So within 5 years, you're getting a doubling of the storage market. And to Nick's point, current state, if we look at 2024 attach rates nationally, if we peel out California and Puerto Rico, we're in kind of almost high single-digit range. To get to that 8 gigawatts nationally, excluding Puerto Rico and California, you're going to get up to 50% attach rate. So that's a huge growth over the next 5 years.
And just a little segue, what do you think is going to help accelerate that growth outside of Puerto Rico and California?
Absolutely. So really, we've touched on the incentives. So just to give you an idea of the size of these incentives. So across Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, they are having 2 gigawatt to 5 gigawatt storage deployment target. Now, of course, that includes all verticals. There are kind of carve-outs for the resi space, but they are huge targets that need to be accomplished. Now, you could argue, well, Connecticut's had their Green Bank program, and it hasn't really. There've been some kind of constraints with regards to reaching those targets. But to go back to what we discussed earlier on, because you have that affordability, that backdrop of affordability, there's a huge motivation and pressure from the legislators to actually get these deployment targets out into the community. So there's those incentives, plus you have VPP programs getting rolled out across the country. You're going to dovetail into those incentives. We can talk about them later, but they're also covering some states that you wouldn't expect, right?
Right.
North Carolina has had their power pair program. Virginia is putting together. It's going through the legislature at the moment to put together a VPP program. Georgia Power has got a VP program pilot up and running. So there are some states there that you wouldn't typically think would be pro storage, but the utilities themselves are realizing the value of it. And that's why we say, you have got to kind of get on board and learn how to sell this, because it's not an accessory. It's going to be figured out.
Yeah, so utilities are going to drive that. Sorry, go ahead.
On top of that, it's making sure installers are prepared, and also making it digestible for the consumer. Because you go to a consumer and talk about what a virtual power plant is, and they have no idea what you're actually talking about and how it genuinely benefits them. So we can talk about how contractors need to be doing this, they need to be selling storage, this is how, but at the end of the day, the consumers aren't actually talking about it and don't understand what's going on. That storage capacity almost doubled by 2050. Right? So there's a couple of things that need to happen, but it needs to be digestible for the end consumer to understand what they're purchasing, what this means, what's the difference between leasing and ownership, what are the benefits in a BPP program to lease or own, and how do you make that decision. And I don't think anyone's actually cracked that code yet. I think a lot of people are trying to figure that out, including us, but no one's actually gotten there. And that's what will change the industry.
Well, a good point. We have a local VPP program here, right? And getting some feedback from installers, it's kind of been a slower for second tranche. The first one went a lot quicker, and I think it's now, really educating the homeowner on the full program. What does it entail? Exporting at certain times. But it's getting a little tougher to educate them, to get them on board. So I totally agree with you on that, and that's the feedback I'm getting from installers here in San Diego.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome point, and we talked about it a lot. And I think as an industry, Nick kind of pointed to it, I think we need to tool installers or make sure installers have the tools so they're not confused about the programs and how to actually sell it. Right? So all those proposal platforms out there and OEMs need to kind of come up with a solution for installers such that they can articulate the value add. And as Nick mentioned, the homeowners can then understand the revenue and the payback that they're only going to get from store. And I think we can take a leaf out of the C&I here, right?
Yeah.
So they have built out very sophisticated programs where they can value stack each of these incentives, right? You can get an upfront incentive per kilowatt hour. You can get revenue from the VPP program, right? And then there's probably PV incentives off to the right. So being able to layer that value stack up and for the salesperson to seamlessly actually articulate that and the homeowner understand is it's a huge option for the industry, and we really should be working on it now.
No, thank you. So let's mix it up a little bit. Eric, we'll go back to you. Are homeowners coming in asking for storage first, or are installers still driving that shift?
So, like I was saying earlier, about 90% of our homeowners are interested in storage. The reason why they're interested in storage is for resiliency purposes. EnergySage was down in DC when the big beautiful bill was being signed and rolled out. And the biggest thing that we were talking about is resiliency. When AI data centers are built, the best electron to the grid is residential solar, right? You tie that with the battery. Now all of a sudden, when everyone is shifting to what California is doing with time of use rates, usually what happens in California happens to the rest of the country 5 years later, right? And we're seeing that shift happen. As time of use rates continue to be implemented, having that solar tied with battery in an AI data center community is going to be instrumental for those homeowners saving money.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're seeing the grid utility rates increase not by 2 to 3% year over year, it's going to 20%, 30% year over year. Homeowners are now all of a sudden looking at their bill saying, I need to provide for my family. I need to save money here. What's the best way to do it? There's an option to join a virtual power plant, earn that, save money over time. However, consumers are still coming to us and saying, we're interested in storage, we want to know how to do it, and we don't know if we go it, and we don't know how, and we don't know how this works. How we can actually save money on the other end. So the consumer demand is there. It's just how do we go about doing it the right way in a market that's contracting at the moment too, right? The solar industry is contracting by 30% this year. How do you go about selling the right way in a difficult sale where homeowners are just not looking to spend money? So there's a lot of macro factors at play here that don't make this easy, but when done right, it clicks for the homeowner, it makes sense. So I think to answer your question, long story long, there's always been consumer interest, but we're starting to figure out how to properly sell, and especially just doing storage with the attachment without having sort of
Yeah.
and having them join that DC program where they're loading a battery during off-peak hours and then distributing that energy during peak hours.
Yeah. So just a quick question, maybe for both your guys' input in terms of like the growth and where we want to be in 5 years. Currently I think on our BPV map, I'm going to make up a number, like 15 states that participate. Within those states, like California, there's more than a handful of BPP programs. Do you think the growth is going to be more with more utilities in the states that are already participating, or are you going to see also growth, again, to your point, with Georgia? I'm going to make Florida. Do you see like more states bringing on BPP programs, or is it a little bit of both?
I know you have thoughts, but I'm going to go first. I think one, it depends on where these AI data centers are being built, first of all, because the utility and the grid infrastructure is not built for the energy that is required for these data centers. So that's first and foremost. But I think secondly, as these utilities continue to see the benefit in virtual power plants, it's not just in California. California will grow with these programs, but it's going to be in other states as well. Massachusetts is like starting to figure this out, right? Like there are other states that are where it might not be an AI data center community either, but they're all trying to figure out, okay, we're switching to time of use rates. We need this energy, and we need to have supply and demand actually match. And right now it's not matching. And utilities are very much more open to working with solar contractors, working with manufacturers in the solar industry than ever before, because the grid needs it and the grid infrastructure needs it. But
Yeah, sure, mate. Thanks, Nick. I think definitely it's outside of California and Puerto Rico, right? And we just alluded to some of the incentives, big numbers that we suggested, particularly in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. To list off some of those active states, we have it in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. We have it in Connecticut already by BPP programs. We have it in North Carolina, we mentioned. We have it in Georgia, Texas through REPs. You can partner with a number of TPOs. You have it, all three utilities in Arizona have programs. Excel in Colorado, right? Minnesota's coming out with programs. I think so. There are existing programs that will kind of dovetail into those incentives. Then you have some very large markets that are currently building up. You might not expect. Virginia's one of them, right? New Jersey is also putting together their BPP program, should be released the first half of this year. Illinois, you mentioned it, Mike.
Yep.
Another one, right?
Yeah.
That was just released by the legislature in January, I think, this year.
Yeah, and it's growing. It's crazy with the attachment rates in Illinois.
So to give you some context, we put out a BPP report earlier this year, and there was 152% growth in the amount of deployed BPPs across the country with EnergySage. Right? So we're now above 2 gig, which is huge.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the sky's the limit. It's growing. It's definitely not a Puerto Rico, California thing. It's going to be capitalized.
Awesome, thanks. So we have a little under 5 minutes. I have one more question, but just before we do that, maybe if the audience might have any questions for Erik or Rohan. Questions? Going once? Bueller? Hopefully you guys got that.
You're showing your age, right?
Thank you. Yes, exactly. So this is more of an operational, but we can end with this. I know you guys are busy, and again, thank you guys for your time. Let's see, if storage becomes the anchor of the solar sale, which we already are seeing that in California, and obviously that's changing across the board, what has to change inside an installation company?
it's a loaded question.
Good one to end on, right?
If I was to say one, I'm pretty bullish on this one, would be the education side of things. I think solar has always been an easy sale for going about and saying you get 30% tax credit, you want to save money, this makes sense. All of a sudden, it's a more complicated sale, it's more technical for the consumer, and it's not just a walk in the park anymore, right? You actually need to figure out, how can I make this a financial decision that makes sense for the homeowner and get them across the finish line for a solar battery installation or just a battery installation, right? And it's figuring out what the homeowner's needs truly are and educating them to get them to understand why they're making that purchase. But it starts with education, selling the right way, selling properly. And when all of a sudden you can build that trust and rapport with the homeowner, that will grow and scale over time. But there's others further down the funnel that you can work on. Trust me, like there's a ton of permitting,
Right.
like customer acquisition costs is a whole lot more funnel, but like purely education and making sure consumers understand what storage means for their home and how much it truly benefits them in the long run will help us double in productivity in the storage side of things. If we can't get that part, all the other pieces become a little less significant.
Very true.
Yeah, I just double down on it. We kind of touched on it earlier. I think it's up to the industry to actually build out the functionality such that the installer can articulate the benefit of storage and the homeowner understands that at the gate. And that's a technology thing, to be able to build out those proposal tools so that you can layer in all those incentives and demonstrate the value add of actually having storage.
And then probably just more education from the utilities, right? Again, talking to installers and, well, tell me more about SDCP. Well, it's a lot of, one touch point on a, webinar is not going to do it either, right? So.
And utilities are funding out solar, right? They have been funding the solar in the past. And so that shift is happening too. So having everyone be able to play nice in the sandbox is somewhat refreshing.
Right.
And excited to see how that plays out.
Got it. Well, you guys are awesome. So I just wanted to thank Erik and Rohan for taking their time. They work for amazing companies that support this industry, but most importantly, spending the time with us for half an hour because you guys have a lot to do today. So really appreciate it. And if anyone does have any questions off the side, feel free to jump in or we can facilitate those for you. But thank you for your time.